Hey everyone, it's Alex, and I am here with another update video for the 90th Academy Awards. Today we're going to go over the contenders for Best Original Score. Now, Best Original Score is a category that honors the scores of various films, and many iconic film scores have won this category over the years, and many more have been nominated, and it's now time to see which scores from last year will be eligible to compete for the 90th Academy Awards. Now, of course, to be eligible, a score has to be written specifically for a movie. It cannot come from any previous source, and if there is any pre-existing music from another film score or another piece of classical music, then it is not eligible. And like the Best Original Song category, these scores had to be submitted to the Academy by 5 p.m. Pacific Time on December 1st, 2017. Now this year, 141 scores have been declared eligible for Best Original Score. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the film scores and their composers, and then I'm going to go over the scores that I feel stood out the most to me last year or that have been getting significant buzz, and then I'll reveal which ones I think will ultimately be nominated. So, let's not waste any more time. Here are the contenders for Best Original Score. Alien Covenant by Jed Kurzel. All I See Is You by Mark Streitenfeld. All the Money in the World by Daniel Pemberton. Annabelle Creation by Benjamin Wallfish. Band-Aid by Lucius. No last name is given there, so that's why it's just Lucius. Battle of the Sexes by Nicholas Britell. Baywatch by Christopher Lennertz. Beauty and the Beast by Alan Menken. The Big Sick by Michael Andrews. Blade Runner 2049 by Benjamin Wallfish and Hans Zimmer. The Book of Henry by Michael Giacchino. Born in China by Barnaby Taylor. The Boss Baby by Hans Zimmer and Steve Mazzaro. Boston by Jeff Beal. Brad's Status by Mark Mothersbaugh. Brawl in Cell Block 99 by Jeff Harriet and S. Craig Zoller. The Breadwinner by Michael Dana and Jeff Dana. Breathe by Nitin Sawhney. Brigsby Bear by David Wingo. Brimstone and Glory by Dan Romer and Ben Zeitlin. Captain Underpants, the First Epic Movie by Theodore Shapiro. Cars 3 by Randy Newman. The Circle by Danny Elfman. Coco by Michael Giacchino. Cries from Syria by Martin Tillman. A Cure for Wellness by Benjamin Wallfish. Darkest Hour by Dario Marianelli. Despicable Me 3 by Heitor Pereira. The Disaster Artist by Dave Porter. A Dog's Purpose by Rachel Portman. Downsizing by Rolf Kent. Drawing Home by Ben Holiday. Dunkirk by Hans Zimmer. Earth, One Amazing Day by Alex Heffes. A Fantastic Woman by Matthew Herbert. The Fate of the Furious by Brian Tyler. Father Figures by Rob Simonson. Ferdinand by John Powell. 50 Shades Darker by Danny Elfman. Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool by Jay Rolfe. First They Killed My Father by Marco Beltrami and Buck Sanders. Get Out by Michael Abels. A Ghost Story by Daniel Hart. Gifted by Rob Simonson. The Glass Castle by Joel P. West. Going in Style by Rob Simonson. Good Time by Daniel Lopatin. Goodbye Christopher Robin by Carter Burwell. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 by Tyler Bates. The Hitman's Bodyguard by Atlee Orverson. Hostels by Max Richter. Human Flow by Karsten Fundal. An Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power by Jeff Beal. It by Benjamin Wallfish. Jane by Philip Glass. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle by Henry Jackman. Justice League by Danny Elfman. Kepler's Dream by Patrick Neal Doyle. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword by Daniel Pemberton. Kingsman, The Golden Circle by Henry Jackman and Matthew Margeson. Kong Skull Island by Henry Jackman. LA 92 by Danny Bensi and Sonder Jurians. LBJ by Mark Shaman. Ladybird by John Brion. Lake of Fire by Qutub E. Kripa. Last Flag Flying by Graham Reynolds. The Lego Batman Movie by Lorne Balfe. The Lego Ninjago Movie by Mark Mothersbaugh. The Leisure Seeker by Carlo Virzi. Let It Fall by Mark Isham. Life by John Ekstrand. Logan by Marco Beltrami. The Lost City of Z by Christopher Spellman. Loveless by Evgeny Galperin and Sasha Galperin. Loving Vincent by Clint Mansell. The Man Who Invented Christmas by Michael Dana. Mark Felt, The Man Who Brought Down the White House by Daniel Pemberton. Marshall by Marcus Miller. Mary and the Witch's Flower by Takatsugu Muramatsu. Maudie by Michael Timmons. Molly's Game by Daniel Pemberton. Moomins and the Winter Wonderland by Lucas Targaz. The Mountain Between Us by Ramin Djawadi. Mudbound by Tamar Kali. The Mummy by Brian Tyler. Murder on the Orient Express by Patrick Doyle. My Cousin Rachel by Rael Jones. Norman, The Moderate Rise and Tragic Fall of a New York Fixer by Jun Miyake. Okja by Jael Jung. Oklahoma City by David Sierri. The Only Living Boy in New York by Rob Simonson. Only the Brave by Joseph Trapanese. Our Souls at Night by Elliot Goldenthal. Paris Can Wait by Laura Cartman. Patty Cakes by Jeremy Jasper and Jason Binnick. Phantom Thread by Johnny Greenwood. The Pirates of Somalia by Andrew Feltenstein and John Now. Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales by Jeff Zanelli. The Post by John Williams. Power Rangers by Brian Tyler. Professor Marston and the Wonder Women by Tom Howe. The Promise by Gabriel Yared. Pooley Morgan by Gopi Sundar. Raw by Jim Williams. Roman J. Israel Esquire by James Newton Howard. Same Kind of Different as Me by John Paisano. The Second Coming of Christ by Naveed Hejazi, Ramin Kusha, and Sylvia Leonetti. Served Like a Girl by Michael A. Levine. The Shack by Aaron Zigman. The Shape of Water by Alexander Desplat. Slipaway by Tao Liu. Smurfs, The Lost Village by Christopher Leonards. Spider-Man Homecoming by Michael Giacchino. Split by West Dylan Thorson. The Star by John Paisano. Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi by John Williams. Step by Laura Cartman and Raphael Sadiq. Stronger by Michael Brook. Suburbicon by Alexander Desplat. Swing Away by Tao Zervis. Thank You for Your Service by Thomas Newman. Their Finest by Rachel Portman. Thelma by Ola Flotum. Thor Ragnarok by Mark Mothersbaugh. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri by Carter Burwell. Tickling Giants by Paul Tyan. Tommy's Honor by Christian Henson. Trafficked by David Das. Transformers The Last Night by Steve Jablonsky. Victoria and Abdul by Thomas Newman. Voice from the Stone by Michael Wandmacher. Wakefield by Aaron Zigman. War for the Planet of the Apes by Michael Giacchino. Wilson by John Brion. Wind River by Nick Cave and Warren Ellis. Wonder by Marcelo Zarvos. Wonder Woman by Rupert Gregson Williams. Wonderstruck by Carter Burwell. Triple X, Return of Xander Cage by Brian Tyler and Robert Lydecker. Year by the Sea by Alexander Janko. And those are the contenders for Best Original Score. Now here are some that stand out to me. I really love the score for Beauty and the Beast. Admittedly, a lot of it is the same score from the 1991 animated film, but there are a lot of new elements to the score as well. And you have the same composer for the animated film, Alan Menken, doing the score here. So it sounds fantastic. Blade Runner 2049, that had a fantastic score. Hans Zimmer is a very reliable composer. He's one of my favorites. And he does a fantastic job of creating a science fiction feel in the score. It pays tribute to the original score by Vangelis from the 1982 film, but doesn't feel like a ripoff of it. Brigsby Bear, that's a very electronica-based score, and it works really well, especially because Brigsby Bear is not a very conventional movie. It gets very bizarre in some places, but it's a wonderful movie all the same, and I explained more about it in my Best Films of 2017 video. But the score perfectly manages to capture both the whimsical and the bizarre aspects of Brigsby Bear, and it manages to fit everything really well. Coco is one of the absolutely beautiful scores of 2017. It feels very authentic in terms of what it represents. Since the film is set in Mexico, you would expect it to have a Mexican-style score, and it absolutely does. And music is a huge part of Coco in terms of the theme and the story. And if you did not have great music to back that up, then the film would have been subpar. And Pixar does not want to be subpar. And if you have not yet heard the score for Coco or have not yet seen the movie, please go watch it and take a listen to the score. I guarantee you'll love it and you'll be deeply moved by it. Darkest Hour had a really good score. It helped elevate the tension that you felt in the film, especially with World War II on the horizon and Winston Churchill having to decide whether or not to fight against the Nazis or try and seek a peace agreement with them. And then Dunkirk, that had a fantastic score, and Dunkirk you could say is kind of like a companion piece to Darkest Hour because they both deal with the Dunkirk event in their own way. But once again, you have Hans Zimmer here, and he is just absolutely fantastic with this score. This score is heart-pounding, it's intense, it's riveting, it's daring, it makes you feel like you're actually in the war and fighting alongside with these soldiers and trying to survive with them. That's really the best way I can describe it. And, you know, if you're a big fan of Hans Zimmer and you love all his other scores, whether it be for Inception or Gladiator or The Lion King or Interstellar, this one will not disappoint you, not at all. Good Time was I didn't really hate that score too much, but I didn't really think there was anything good about it. I know a lot of people have praised that score, and I think there are some who probably would like to see it get nominated, although I don't think that's going to happen. But I personally felt it was kind of a ripoff of both Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score for The Social Network and Hans Zimmer's score for Inception. It felt like it was trying too hard to sound like the scores for one of those movies, rather than be its own thing. It had a fantastic score. This is Benjamin Wallfisch all by himself, and he also did the score alongside Hans Zimmer for Blade Runner 2049, and as a solo composer, he's also done work for films like Hidden Figures, and horror film scores can often make or break a film. Well, not completely, because there are other things that have to make or break a horror film as well, but a score can be a very iconic part of a horror film. Look at The Exorcist or The Omen as a perfect example. And while I don't necessarily think it has the most iconic score ever, I do think its score worked very well and helped increase the tension, especially when Pennywise is haunting all the kids, and they eventually confront him in the sewers. I think that part of the score was its most effective, really adding to the drama and the horror of everything going on. The Lost City of Z had a very nice adventure feel to it, since it's about a real-life British explorer looking for a supposed lost city in the Amazon jungle. Now, I haven't heard the score for Maudie, but I recognize the composer, Michael Timmins. Now, he's not a traditional film composer because he mostly does rock music. He's the guitarist for a Canadian band called the Cowboy Junkies. And despite the title of the band, they're not necessarily a country band. They've admitted to being influenced by some country artists, but they don't sing with a country style or twang, and they don't write the kind of songs that country artists usually write. And the Cowboy Junkies, it's like a whole family band, because Michael Timmins plays guitar, his sister Margot Timmins is the vocalist, their brother Peter Timmins, I think is his name, is the drummer, and then the bassist is like their good friend who isn't a member of their family, but they've known him for a long time, Alan Anton. Cowboy Junkies, they've never really been like a big superstar band, but they've been recording and touring for the last 30 years or so, since the mid-'80s. So if you look up some of their songs on YouTube or iTunes, I think you may be pleasantly surprised by them. So give them a listen if you haven't listened to them before. While The Mountain Between Us didn't really have the most memorable score, its composer is certainly well known, particularly in the world of TV. Ramin Djawadi is well known for writing the score to episodes of Game of Thrones and now Westworld as well. Now, with Murder on the Orient Express and Kepler's Dream, it may sound like those two composers are the same, but their name is said differently, like Patrick Doyle versus Patrick Neil Doyle. However, I looked the two of them up, and it turns out they're two different people. I haven't heard the full score for Phantom Thread because I have yet to see the full movie. It'll come out to my area later this week, just right before the Oscar nominations come out, but I've heard bits and pieces of the score and the trailers. Very haunting piano score, and I'll admit I'm a sucker for haunting piano scores. And this is by Johnny Greenwood, and he's frequently worked with Paul Thomas Anderson. And he's done scores for There Will Be Blood, The Master, Inherent Vice. And Johnny Greenwood, if you're wondering if that name sounds familiar, he's actually the lead guitarist for the band Radiohead. And Radiohead is in my top 10 favorite bands of all time. The Shape of Water, that is a fantastic score. It's actually my personal favorite score of last year, and it's done by Alexander Desplat, who is my second favorite film composer of all time. The only one I have ranked higher than him is John Williams. And Alexander Desplat really is kind of the John Williams of his generation. He's written so many great scores, such as The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, The King's Speech, The Tree of Life, Argo, Zero Dark 30, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Moonrise Kingdom, and many more. And his score for The Shape of Water is just absolutely beautiful. It's not necessarily a fast-paced score, it's a very slow and a haunting kind of score, but I like those scores a lot, and I think a lot of people like them too. And The Shape of Water is the front-runner to win this category actually at the Oscars, because it won the Golden Globe and the Critics' Choice Award, and if it wins the Oscar, it's well-deserved, because this score connects everything in the movie perfectly. This score is the lifeblood of the movie, alongside the writing, the acting, and the directing. You know, it represents every aspect of the movie it needs to. It's a happy score when it needs to be happy. It's a sad score when it needs to be sad. It's a dramatic score when it needs to be dramatic. Everything it needs to be, it is right at the moment that it needs it to be. Star Wars: The Last Jedi had an absolutely phenomenal score, and you expect nothing less than phenomenal when you have John Williams attached at the helm. And John Williams has done all the Star Wars scores except for the solo standalone films like Rogue One. The great thing about his Star Wars scores is that they don't feel too repetitive of each other. Each score kind of has its own unique flavor, and The Last Jedi is no exception. You know, it's very slow and moving when it needs to be. It's very fast and dramatic when it needs to be. And yeah, that's pretty much all I can say, because with a Star Wars score, that's what you want, and that's what we got. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, very good score. Kind of more acoustic guitar based than orchestra, but it works really well. And then finally, Wonderstruck, another Carter Burwell score. Up until I saw Star Wars and The Shape of Water, this was my favorite score of the year, because kind of like The Shape of Water, Wonderstruck is heavily reliant upon its score, because a good chunk of the film involves characters speaking no dialogue at all. In fact, one portion of the film, which is told in black and white, is more like a silent film, and mainly because the story of that black and white aspect involves a deaf girl, and obviously she speaks through sign language rather than, you know, physical, verbal communication. And given that silent film plays a big role in the 1920s story as well, it kind of makes sense for it to be told that way. And the score, especially in the silent film aspect, is just absolutely moving and brilliant. Words just can't express how much I love the score from Wonderstruck, because it's very heartfelt, moving, and it knows how to strike the right emotional accord. It doesn't feel emotionally manipulative at one bit. It does everything you need it to do. It makes you feel exactly how you're meant to feel during the scenes, and it feels genuinely earned rather than manipulated on. It's just one of those scores that sticks with you after you hear it. Now if I had to try and pick which scores I think will be nominated, I think The Shape of Water is a lock to be nominated, as is Dunkirk. Phantom Thread, I think, has a good chance of being nominated. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri could possibly have a good chance of being nominated, because all these composers that I mentioned are very well known to the Academy, and the music branch really loves their work. I could see Michael Giacchino possibly getting in for either Coco or War for the Planet of the Apes. Maybe John Williams has a chance for either The Post or Star Wars The Last Jedi. So if I had to predict some nominees, I'd say they'd be The Shape of Water, Dunkirk, Phantom Thread, Darkest Hour, and Star Wars The Last Jedi. I'm going to say those 5 will be the official nominees. I may end up changing my mind, but we'll see. And like I did before in my previous video, if you saw circles around various scores, those were the scores that I wanted to specifically talk about and give a little more information on. But those are my thoughts on the contenders for Best Original Score. Let me know in the comment section below what you think will be nominated and what you think is going to be nominated. And also let me know if there are any scores that you feel should have been included here, or you feel just haven't gotten enough attention. I'm curious as to your thoughts about that, so let me know in the comment section below. And please subscribe to my channel if you have not yet already done so you can get all of my new videos as soon as they're uploaded. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.